Alrighty, good morning. Thank you very much for joining me this morning on this episode of the Schusterian podcast. So, yesterday I was on my LinkedIn and I actually got a question from somebody who messaged me. I was connecting with them online, or they saw my content and they wanted to connect with me. And usually I answer most of these questions on LinkedIn itself. Like if you go on LinkedIn right now, if you see this video on your feed and you want to message me, you can just go connect with me and message me about anything. I'll usually connect there. However, I thought because I'm now doing this morning show and I'm doing it more frequently, it would be interesting to actually answer the question live here. So the question today is from Thomas Haysom, who's, I believe, is out of the United Kingdom, if I saw his LinkedIn profile correctly. But let me go ahead and read his question that he sent me. Hey, Brian, I hope you don't mind. I have a quick question for you. Having just finished my bootcamp focused on Django on backend and HTML, CSS, JS on the front end, I was hoping for your advice on what technology skills to focus on learning next to optimize my employability in the current job market. I am not design focused and enjoy writing logic, creating functionality, so leaning towards backend roles, but I know there is plenty of this work with React on the front end too. I'm considering either doing a deep dive into DS&A via Coursera specialization course, thinking it will help me with interview assessment, or building upon basic understanding of React, doing courses and mini projects. My priority is to get a job front end, as long as I am not designing or back end. Thank you in advance, Tom. So first, Tom, thank you very much for sending this question in. I love answering questions like this because it really helps me demonstrate some of the things that I have seen work for other people and kind of the right direction to go through there. So I do have some targeted advice for you. It's probably not going to be exactly what you're thinking, but I hope it gives you a good frame of mind of where to go next. So, in summary, Thomas took the boot camp. He's interested in employability. I'm sure there's other enjoyability factors there, but that's the primary thing. Get a job in technology, but really not sure what to study next. So the initial inclination for a lot of folks is to come out of the boot camp and decide, I need to go and study more, which sometimes can be right, but it needs to be informed by other factors. So let me take you through what my exact advice here would be. If you came out of boot camp and you are not sure really what to do next, and you think, oh, I have a whole bunch of positions to go through, and I don't care what type of job I do, I just want a job for employability. That's a good goal, but it's not going to do you any services in the market. My very first piece of targeted advice here is you have to pick a position you want to go into, and you really need to target that role specifically. Not just any role in development. It needs front end, back end, or whatever. You need really to figure out what is the thing I'm going to study for now. Again, experience will inform you if you're going in the right direction. Like you may decide I'm a full stack developer, but in fact, I really have a specialization in APIs, but only experience can tell you that. The reason why you do this is because for entry-level developers, let's say, people entering the job market, there is just a ton of people. There's a lot of people, and boot camps are growing and growing, and they're pumping out a lot of full stack developer positions, right? Or people who can do that position. So you're getting a lot of people who understand the basic education of computer science. They understand a good front-end tool. They understand, MongoDB, and they're relatively undifferentiated from the perspective of experience. They have very little experience. For people that go and apply to jobs where they go back-end, front-end, or whatever, they first off don't catch any attention. They'll write generic resumes that say, "Oh, I am just I am a software developer and I'll do whatever position you have," which isn't impressive to employers. Employers aren't going to look at it and go, "Oh, he can do any job." They have lots and lots of people who can do any sort of software job. They need a specific person to fill a position: a full stack developer, a back end, an API developer, a database developer, whatever it might be. So if you don't pick a position, at least temporarily, you're going to run into issues with finding employability. I mean, I've met people who have gone in the market for years who don't want to niche down and say, yeah, I'm really full stack. I'm developer. I'm this type of developer. I'm saying no to these opportunities. And it really harms their ability, because it means that when they study, they're not studying to differentiate. They're just studying to be more of a generalist. And when you're applying for that first job, you really want to strive from looking like a generalist. As much as I love the T-shaped person, and I just did a video on this to go through that, the resume position and your deep technical skills are not the place to show that breadth. You need to be showing depth so you can get through the first set of recruitment interviews before you actually go get to the manager. So first piece of advice, niche down into something. If you decide it's full stack developer, backend, or whatever, you can always change later if it ends up being a false move. But just niching down now will help you, give you direction, and that'll make the rest of this easier. The second thing I would recommend is that I think, somebody who's in this position should be going and really analyzing the market to figure out where the gaps are. So software development is changing rapidly. I mean, just like, for my position, like I applied to a DevOps engineer position at IBM, which is a term no one uses anymore. And I applied to that job in 2019. We now use the term site reliability engineer, and the skill stack has changed. We would have been very heavily into Linux administration as being a core thing you do, versus now it's more of a nice to have, where there's other SRE principles that are more important, for somebody to know. Not that I wouldn't want somebody to know Linux, it's just that now the skill is kind of transitioning to another part of the stack, more Kubernetes administration, that sort of thing. Your market is going to go through the same exact thing. So if you go out to the market and you do that, you're going to want to actually look at resumes. So no matter how good of a diverse background you have, no matter how interesting your resume is, if there is no way for the employer to really think that you're going to do the technical job, you're just not going to get employed. And for every single job, there are going to be some keystone skills that you're going to have to learn, or there may be a basket of 4 to 5 skills that are important and you need 3 or more to be able to go do. So for example, for a full stack developer, that might look like solid understanding of how React operates, ability to deal with non-relational databases, the ability to create an API. Those are things that you might see. And when you're applying to lots and lots of roles, like somebody out of boot camp is going to be, you want to really start to get a consensus from that particular role, for full stack role, and start to see what comes up over and over again. So if you see React is brought up there, but like deep React skills are really important, you want to go, you may consider that to be an optimization. If you see MongoDB come up again, you may do that. You may start to see some, other skills come up, like Docker might come up. Cloud might come up, that sort of thing. You want to go off and analyze and really try to figure out broadly, what is this role actually asking for in general? If you had to create almost like a meta role for the position, what it would look like. Doing that sort of personal analysis, and you can just go on LinkedIn and do this. You can just search for jobs, type in the exact role you want, full stack developer, backend, whatever, and go and see them. And then you can pull out some of that information to go and see, like, okay, which of these positions are, what are the key skills there? And you can figure out, what is really prevalent. And then you can either do a self-assessment, that's one way to go through it, to say, okay, where am I really weak? Or you can actually just do informational interviews with these folks. I mean, that's the thing. If you see a job posting for a particular company, you can go see who the hiring manager is, or you can see a developer that's actually in that position, and you can go message them. You can say, hey, I'm interested in your position. You can go say, Thomas, you can go and say, hi, my name is Thomas. I'm a boot camp graduate. I'm interested in your position, but I'm not sure I'm 100% I'm fit. Or I would like to go through and talk to you about what, this position looks like. Would you have 30 minutes for an informational interview to do that? You do that to 5 or 6 people, you'll probably get somebody who will sit down and go, yeah, this is my job. This is what I'll do there. And you can really get an honest assessment of your background. You can say, okay, I don't know React that well, or I know React a little bit, or hey, there's this, you're using Node. Is the fact that I know Django a problem? That sort of thing. And really get a gap. The whole point is you're trying to figure out, where are your gaps? Where are the places where you're not going to be able to get through those hard technical questions and be able to do that? And you really want to focus on the big areas, because generally speaking, if you're studying a technology, you're not going to study something and only get a onesie, twosie, benefit from it. You're usually going to cover large swaths of your background and what you're able to do. You're able to cover and say, okay, I'm covering this, this giant gap in React, but that's also teaching me some Mongo APIs or whatever. And then maybe you go take a database course, which is also going to cover some of the API stuff. So generally speaking, your next direction is going to cover lots of things, but you need to know really what does the market think of you, and doing informational interviews, studying, getting resumes of people who successfully got the job and hearing about their experience from your peers, is a great way to get that gap, to do that gap analysis and figure out where you're weak. So that's my next piece of advice. And then finally, as far as what you would actually go through, I would say you are optimizing for demonstrable skills. That's the thing that's really hard. And what I mean by, demonstrable skills is that you should be able to go in and have good questions to, good answers to the questions like, talk to me about a time when you had a weird, hard front end feature request and you had to resolve it. That sort of thing. Don't get me wrong, knowing the actual technical definitions of things, like knowing very specific things about the React source, code base or Django or any framework is going to be really, really impressive. That's going to be good, and that's going to help you. And there's a way to go about doing this. But if somebody doesn't see that you haven't worked, doesn't see that you've actually worked on this, that you have projects where you're doing that, it's not impossible to get to the position, but again, we're getting more towards the undifferentiated masses. Lots of people will be able to say that. What I would recommend for you is to go through and take a project that you can go, work on in addition to your learning. Maybe it's a personal passion project. Maybe it's something that you do where you're really interested in, and then you can take the course and then work on this project to actually dive deep to it. Or go out and start doing freelance work, do startup work in the realm where you're really, where you feel you need the additional skill set. You might decide, okay, let's just say, for example, your background in Django is not up to snuff. You've done the analysis and you're like, that's not good enough. You may go and get deeper into Django where you studied that some specific part of it, but then pick a personal project where it's like, okay, I need help on APIs, so I'm going to pick an API intensive project. Or you go out to a few startups that you know of, or a few companies, and say, hey, I'll do this work for you for free just to get the experience. I'll build you a backend, I'll do whatever, and then you can focus your experience on there. What that allows you to do is, one, you're building a skill set towards something you have a gap in, that you go in that direction. And two, it's not just theoretical, And when I say personal project, it needs to be something you're invested in, like something where if it doesn't work, you're going to care to be able to go through that. Because what you're then going to be able to do is you're going to be able to show on your resume, I have some demonstrable skills. I have some demonstrable experience. I can go through and show a personal project or a startup experience or freelance work that gave me those skills that I was able to show. And now all of a sudden you're differentiated, because everyone can say they take a course on Django, but you can say, I took a course on Django and I got the experience, from somewhere else, in the market. That's something no one else is going to be really able to show. What I found is that when people have that experience, they can really answer those experiential questions. Their chance of getting hired are way, way, way better. People who struggle on experiential questions, even if they know some of the technical stuff, on that side of it, at least in my experience, haven't done super well. So those are the core three things from an education perspective. Like if you decided you need more education and go through, you want to, that's what I would say. Niche down, find a bunch of job descriptions and have informational interviews on what it's going to take to get the job. Optimize for, whatever skill gap you have, and then find demonstrable skills in that area. And I'm going to go much, much further deeper into, what that actually means. But it would be stuff like freelance work, startups, research projects, not-for-profits, your own personal thing that you're really invested in. Those are the sort of things that build demonstrable skills in your nights and weekends. And then you can go apply. Or if you've decided that you just want to apply now, there is an alternative path, which I think is more mechanized, but it has worked, which is just brute force it. You can apply to many, many, many different jobs and try to get somebody to say yes to you for what you have there. Generally speaking, if you do this route, you have to apply to hundreds of jobs. I just did a interview with Grayson Stricker, who actually did this process. He came out of the boot camp. He was highly self-motivated, so he had a ton going on, but he actually basically created a spreadsheet, applied to a bunch of different positions and just did that every single day. That's an alternative path. So if you're interested in that path, go watch my interview. It'll be up soon, with Grayson, and, we talk all about his bootcamp experience and everything else, but that's one path. But if you're really interested in being more structured for a job and picking a particular position and make yourself more attractive in the market, optimizing for demonstrable skills is what I would recommend. So Thomas, thank you very much for the question. I very much appreciate it. Yes, and I hope this has been helpful for you. And for anyone else that's listening, thank you for tuning in today. The rest of this week, I'm going to have more content coming up. I'm going to have this interview with Grayson, which was just an awesome discussion. I mean, basically, as a former salesperson who went into who decided to go into software, and he really used a lot of those sales techniques to go get a job. Awesome interview. So I think you guys will really enjoy that. So anyway, folks, thank you very much for spending some time with me today.